If you've never been to tothesource.org, you need to take a look at that. It's on your program. They're one of the sponsors, tothesource.org. I subscribe to their email announcements that come out. They're tremendous articles on key cultural issues. So thanks to them for helping to support this. Ready for action? All right then. The first opening statement will be Dinesh D'Souza for 15 minutes. You ready? Very good.
I'm ready. Well, I am delighted and honored to be here. I'm looking forward to a lively debate. In fact, thinking about this and thinking about our election season, I was remembering back to 1984. You might remember some of the, well, some of you won't remember, the Reagan-Mondale debates. There wasn't much of a debate, really. Reagan would speak and Mondale would make accusations and Reagan would ignore him. Finally, one of the reporters, Andrea Mitchell, said, President Reagan, what do you think of Mondale's charges? And Reagan said, I think he should pay them. Walks off. Well, we sometimes have special occasions and weeks, Black History Month and so on. For me, this has been something I like to call Atheist Bashing Week, because I've actually been doing several debates this week, but it's culminating in this one. And I want to welcome Peter Singer, because in some ways I think that in making this case, he represents the sharpest, perhaps in some ways the deepest, certainly the most lucid, and in a very profound way the most consistent in arguing out the premises and the implications of atheism. Peter Singer is a controversial figure, and it's not entirely surprising. He has advanced theses that have caused a little bit of shock. He's argued, for example, that not only should abortion be permitted to the moment of pregnancy, but people should be able to kill their infants up to the age of 28 days, essentially without restriction. He has also argued that other cultures kill their children at much further ages, 1 year, 2 years, 5 years old. He says we can actually learn from these cultures with a view to perhaps adopting some of their practices. He's also argued in favor of euthanasia, which is the killing of people who are old and in a sense have ceased to get very much out of life, perhaps. And then somewhat paradoxically, he is also a champion of animal rights. In fact, he has argued that even the fish and the rats may have more consciousness, more awareness of their surroundings, and in some senses have a better claim to life than handicapped humans who don't have that kind of awareness. Now, when he argues these things, people usually get horrified and they gasp and they say, how can you think this? So they think he's kidding. But I want to suggest actually that we should calm down and take a hard look at what he's saying, because really, I think what he's trying to show us is the logical implications of a purely secular society. Now, what I mean by this is that we all think we know what a secular society looks like. We have, in a sense, one foot in secular society. Europe is, we think, a secular society, but no. Our society, and certainly Western civilization, remains imbued, in some ways drenched, with Christian assumptions. Even people who think they are acting in secular ways are often reflecting those assumptions. We need to think hard of what it would be like in a society where you have completely removed God from the picture. Now, this is what I take to be Peter Singer's argument, and I'm stating it not completely to disagree with it. I'm going to comment on it after I state it. I think he's saying in a sense that if God is dead, and he thinks God is dead, then Christian morality is based on a myth. And so having killed God, it's not enough to stop there. You've got to work it through and get rid of all the Christian morality that comes out of that Christian God. So, for example, the idea that we've long had in the West of the preciousness and equal dignity of human life. He thinks that needs to go. the specialness of human life, human beings in a sense differentiated in some ways, having rights, for example, that are not extended to other living creatures. This idea of life as unique, human life as special, he thinks that we should get rid of that one. The prohibition against the deliberate killing of the innocents. This has been a bedrock principle of Western civilization. It is an emanation of Christianity. He would like us to move beyond it. In some senses, what Peter Singer is saying is that either we are the special creation of God, or we are Darwinian primates. Since we are Darwinian primates, we've got to recognize that Christianity is a myth. Christianity came into the world, and it took human beings, and it put them on this pedestal. It said, God loves you. God, in a sense, created everything because of you. You have special dignity, special worth, special rights. And in a sense, Singer is saying, now we've got to move away from all that. We've got to knock man off his pedestal and bring him down. And also automatically the position of the animals moves up. So one may say the Darwinian natural continuum is thereby restored. Now, if all of this seems a little bizarre, I actually want to suggest that I agree completely with this argument. If the premise is true, the conclusions do indeed follow. Now, other leading atheists, people like Christopher Hitchens, Richard Dawkins, and others, I've been debating some of them, and they often say, listen, we can be good without God. We can preserve Christian morality without the Christian God. We can retain compassion. We can retain the value of human life. We can retain the equal dignity of women. We can just get rid of, if you will, the divine foundation. Richard Dawkins has even called himself a cultural Christian. I take Peter Singer to be arguing that this view is a complete illusion. And in this sense, I'm on Peter Singer's side of the debate. I want to say very briefly why. One way we can look at the distinctive heritage of Christianity is you just have to look to ancient Greece and Rome. I'm talking about pre-Christian Rome, before Christianity. First of all, the ancient Spartans, very famously, if the child was sick or unwanted or feeble, they would leave it on the hillside and be quite happy to find it dead in the morning. This is not actually so shocking. What is shocking is the great thinkers of ancient Greece, Plato, Aristotle, knew about this and viewed it with relative equanimity. Now, why? That's because the idea of the worth or sacredness of human life, this was simply not a big value in ancient Greece and Rome. Infanticide was, in fact, quite common in those societies. Slavery was very common in ancient Greece and Rome, and some people say, well, didn't it continue under Christianity? Well, not really. In fact, between the 3rd and the 10th centuries, slavery was eradicated from most of Europe, and then later you had strong anti-slavery or abolition movements largely motivated by Christianity. The Quakers, the evangelical Christians, basically said if we are created equal in the eyes of God, a theological point, then no man has the right to rule another man without his consent. And this idea became the basis not only of anti-slavery or abolition, it also became the basis of democracy, which is based on the very same principle. No man has the right to rule another without consent. Or look at the idea of compassion. Aristotle makes a list of the virtues. Compassion does not appear on that list. In some ways, Aristotle saw it more as a vice. So compassion is a value that came into the world because of Christianity. In a sense, I take Peter Singer to be arguing that we need not so much to go forward as to go back to that kind of a pre-Christian world in which life is valued not so much for itself as an end in itself, but as a means, if you will, to Darwinian primates trying to make their way in the world.